Hey, good morning, everybody. Inflation is going through the roof. It has been for a number of months, going up, that is, but it's really taking off. And what we've seen up to now, I fear, is just the beginning of something that is going to continue ramping up and is going to be far worse than even what we've seen already. In the UK, over the Platinum Jubilee weekend, when everyone was celebrating, having a good time, or enjoying a few days off, the price of petrol at the pumps at the petrol stations was going up every single day. And so now in some places, petrol has reached £2 a litre. That would have been unthinkable a couple of years ago. And for some people, it's now £100 to fill up your car with a tank of petrol or a tank of diesel. So it's gone up essentially double since about this time last year, 2 years ago. This time 2 years ago, petrol and diesel were about half the price of what they are now. Now that was because there was a slump, a dip in prices at the beginning of the lockdown, which is a whole other story. I don't agree with them either. But there's three major reasons why this is happening, and it's all completely avoidable. Now, the one thing, the number one reason, first thing that's been going on for a long time is the crazy, insane pursuit of net zero policies, of putting taxes on everything that involves fossil fuels, whether it's petrol, diesel, electricity generated from coal, in order to subsidize wind and solar power, which doesn't produce much electricity and needs massive subsidies, or electricity produced from gas, or the gas that comes into our homes through the gas grid, as well as the national power grid for electricity. All of those things have had immense tampering with due to government policy and their pursuit of climate alarmism. The climate alarmism is a nonsensical, unscientific ideology. What it says is that carbon dioxide is harmful and we need to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. This is total nonsense and total bunkum. Carbon dioxide is good for the planet. It's good for plants. Plants need carbon dioxide to grow. And actually, as levels of carbon dioxide have been increasing, which they have been since the 60s when records began measuring the quantity of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, there has been notable greening in places at the edge of Sahara, in Africa, at the edge of the Gobi Desert in Asia, and so on, and other places, because plants like it and they grow more. And they grow faster when they have more carbon dioxide. We do not need to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. The IPCC's scaremongering modelled predictions of an increase in global temperatures of 1 or 2 or 3.5% are based on models where you can get any number out of, depending on what numbers you put in. We've seen in another situation with the whole lockdown thing, the danger of dodgy modelling. And this is what we have with the whole climate narrative as well. So we need to stop pursuing this mad net zero policy, and let's keep our coal and gas power stations open so we have enough electricity to keep the lights on, and let's stop putting extra taxes on our petrol and diesel to subsidize other forms of energy which don't produce much energy. And then we wouldn't have such rampant inflation. But we would still have some. But that's because of two other things in particular that our government in the UK and other governments around the world have done, which are not good. Number one is pursuing lockdown, closing down the economy, and then quantitative easing, hundreds of billions of pounds. I think in the UK it was 400 to 500 billion pounds of extra debt the government took on, created by the Bank of England, in order to subsidise people not to work because they told people not to work, completely unnecessarily. So they've increased the national debt and the amount of currency we have by about 25% over 2 years. So that bakes in 25% inflation anyway. So prices at the pump, prices of petrol and diesel and food and stationery and everything is automatically going to go up by about 25%. Over time, it won't happen immediately, but it will happen over 2 or 3 or 4 years after they did the quantitative easing. So we're now reaping the consequences of that huge expansion in money and quantitative easing to pay people not to work. That's another reason why we have inflation. That's not all of the reason, but it's some of the reason. And if they continue quantitative easing, we will have inflation by the amount that they do quantitative easing in percentage terms. It's just basic economics. The third thing is the pursuit of the conflict in the Ukraine and Western regimes trying to keep it going rather than de-escalate and sit down, try to find peace and get back to normal relations with Russia, who provides Europe, most of the European countries, with oil and gas and food and fertilizer and minerals and all kinds of things that we need. They put economic sanctions on Russia, which I said from the beginning were crazy, they're going to backfire, and they have backfired. There's a lot of European countries now can't get gas or oil from Russia unless they pay in rubles, and some of them have said, well, we're not going to pay in rubles, so their gas has been cut off from Russia and they're going to have to buy it from Norway, which is the second biggest supplier of gas in Europe. And then that also has a knock-on effect to the UK because we buy most of our imported gas from Norway, and the prices of Norwegian gas has gone up because there's less supply of gas from Russia. So again, this is something, but you know, Johnson in the UK has been one of the biggest cheerleaders of keeping the conflict in Ukraine going by supplying tens of billions of pounds from the collective West to the National Socialists in Ukraine, which again is utterly ridiculous to be doing. So that is fueling inflation as well. You got a perfect storm of three things, as well as general other financial irresponsibility in the UK. This regime, essentially, the fake Conservatives, have been in power for over 12 years now. And they're supposed to be financially responsible, but they're even worse at financial profligacy than Tony Blair and Gordon Brown were. They're worse than Labour. And, you know, you have the same around the world. Whether Biden, Trudeau, in USA, Canada, countries in the EU, they're all just getting their nations into more and more debt, and you know, eventually there will come a point where the hole is so big you can't climb out of it. I think we're on the brink of that in the UK. We're nearly 100% debt to GDP ratio. If we go over that, you know, we'll never be able to climb out. Like Greece. Greece has got, what it was, 150 plus debt to GDP ratio. They're done. Their economy, they're going to be dependent on the rest of the EU forever. And the EU itself is getting into massive debt. Even Germany, that used to be financially responsible, has now got a red-green yellow coalition government. My goodness me. So what a nightmare that is. And they're just pursuing the debt train, and have completely abandoned good Hayekian principles of economics. So, you know, they're going down the tubes as well. So, you know, I'm just speaking for my country. We need a change right now. End the madness of net zero. end the sanctions on Russia, don't do any more quantitative easing, and that, you know, we can have less pain and less inflation than we've got already. But is he going to do that? Oh, come on, obviously he's not. He's going to continue with the programs that he's already on, following the World Economic Forum's crazy drive to Agenda 2030 and carbon net zero, all completely unnecessarily. So to save the economy, we need a regime change. And yeah, I'm trying to provide the alternative at the ballot box for that. And who knows when there will be another general election, because Johnson's in trouble in the UK. So please do come and join us in the Heritage Party to restore financial responsibility, among all the other things that are common sense you can see in our manifesto. So as always, I'll put the link down below so you can have a look at our manifesto and join us and get involved if you'd like. But otherwise, you know, think about these things, and it will be this whole inflation scenario would have been so easy to avoid. But I do wonder if there are some people, well, I don't wonder, there are some people who deliberately want to crash the economy of Western nations in order to bring in a new economic system based on digital identity and social credit and technocracy, where energy and carbon will be the currency. And that would be an utterly hellish economy and society to live in, because they would imagine carbon was the currency, you know, energy was the currency, and you only had so much energy you were allowed to use every day, rather than having pounds and you choose how much energy you use. They would cut off your energy at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and stop you from spending if they decided you've eaten too much in the morning or you'd driven too far in your car. So you drive 100 miles in your car in the morning, well then, you know, your electric car, I don't have an electric car, I have a car that's 20 years old that still runs on petrol, so they can't get me there. But say you have an electric car attached to the smart grid, well, they can just cut you off. They can cut your engine off if they've decided that you've used too much carbon in the day or the month or the year. This is actually what some people really, really want. And it needs to be resisted with everything that we have, because you will not have your freedom and you will not be able to spend your money on what you want to do. And we want to continue with cash and the system we have, where we are free to choose what we want to buy or not to buy. And that is how it should stay. Anyway, I should do a whole other video on that, shouldn't I? Anyway, there we go. Enough said. I know people are struggling. There are ways to change things politically. If we can get in, we would do what we can to get back to responsibility and yeah, soften the effects of inflation. I don't think we can stop it from continuing totally, because they've baked the policies in. They've baked it in over many, many years. But we can turn the ship around, but we need the right people to be captaining the ship, not the people that we got at the moment. Okay, God bless you all.